How's it going, guys? Alex here. Welcome back to another SSR Analysis video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Super Saiyan Goten as well as the brand new Super Saiyan Trunks. And this was a bit of a surprise, but because on the information or the announcement for this particular event there was a new Super Saiyan Goten and a new Super Saiyan Trunks, we kind of assumed that they were going to bring out new units because it was different from Rebirth arts. But yeah, back to the old layout like the previous video. But I hope you guys are having a great day as always, and if you do enjoy today's video, consider leaving a like and subscribing if you are new. But let's go ahead and get started with the Goten. His leader skill gives 2 ki as well as a 20% stat boost to physical and in types. His super attack causes supreme damage to the enemy, and his passive, no, not his passive skill, his super attack mechanic gives a 20% attack boost to all allies for 1 turn. His passive skill has a high chance of giving him an 80% attack boost, and he is always guaranteed, okay, this is the important part, this is the important part, he is guaranteed to reduce incoming damage by 40%, so let's say you don't necessarily have the greatest mono in team and you wish to have a tank, maybe you don't have LR Piccolo and you just want, a tank in your team because the team that you are using isn't giving out that much damage or putting out that much damage. Maybe you want a unit that will allow you to survive a bit longer, and he is definitely a good unit for that because 40% is a big number. And keep in mind that when you put these units on a double Gogeta lead, their defensive stat gets so damn high. I believe it gets, well, again, it depends on the defensive stat, right, and the ability system buffs, but I would imagine that Goten's defensive stat is going to be something along the lines of maybe 14,000 plus. I don't see it being any lower than that. Honestly, I think I'm underestimating how high his defense is actually going to be. I think it's going to be a bit closer to 18,000, but this is just 10% more than Vegito Blue's debuff, but I still think that's going to have a lot of value. He is definitely going to be taking like 3,000-4,000 damage, which is still pretty damn good. And of course, when you take into account the fact that you could potentially even getting even more defensive boosts from units like the new Gohan, buff Goku, Whis, it just makes him an even better unit for that specific thing, which is obviously tanking. And it's not to say that he can't hit hard, but the fact that his passive is obviously a chance for it to happen, well, the attack part of it. But when you take a look at the Trunks, you will see how they contrast in certain aspects of their card. And it makes sense why they did this, but let's move on to the links. He has Golden Warrior, Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Budding Warrior, the Innocence, Prepared for Battle. He has relatively high stats as well. Unfortunately, he did not receive a rebirth like the Agility and Physical Super Saiyan Goten and Trunks, but his 12 ki multiplier is 130%, which is, fairly average. But when it comes to Goten in particular, you can tell that they tried to focus their damage reduction a bit more and his tanking capabilities. And if anything, he is more of a support unit in the sense because he gives that 20% attack boost to all your allies. He reduces incoming damage by 40%. And it's not to say that he won't hit hard, but because, like I said before, because it's a chance for his passive or that portion of his passive to go off, it kind of puts, it's kind of a letdown in terms of damage, but you can still get his super attack to 10 with relative ease. If you go ahead and just save up any of the TEQ Super Saiyan Gotens that you manage to pull. But yeah, overall, he is a decent card. I did not expect him to make him somewhat of a tank. Obviously, with a high damage reduction, he would be able to tank as well as units like Vegito. Of course, you have Golden Frieza as well. But unfortunately, because it's not that high, he may not be on that particular level. However, I will say that with enough ability system buffs, and if you get his defensive stat to around maybe 6k, maybe a bit higher, he should be able to tank most attacks without any problems at all. The only real objection to this is when you are taking on an opponent where you have a type disadvantage. That's a completely different case. And to be honest, the best example of something like this is when I used Vegito Blue in my monophysical team. You take the older event, which is where I started off with that Vegito Blue showcase on that monophysical team, and he was literally tanking everything for double digits. Granted, he has to take into account that he has several ability system buffs. His defensive stat was pretty damn high because of the double Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks leader skill. You have the damage reduction from his own passive, so when you take all of that into account, he was able to tank everything even with a type disadvantage. But because of how the newer Dokkan events have progressed, you will now be taking more damage just because the bosses do hit harder, and because the bosses can tank more, you will be dealing less damage in return. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that if you were, or if this card was released in the previous meta, he would have been able to tank a lot more. Granted, we didn't have the insane leader skill boost that we have now, but even so, that 40% damage reduction is still pretty damn high. And to be fair, this is just their way of trying to balance things out. You can't release extremely overpowered leader skills or just leads and then expect the bosses to be the exact same, right? They have to make them a bit stronger, they have to make them a bit tankier to make it harder for the people playing the game. Otherwise, the bosses are just going to be extremely easy, and it's just going to get boring. So if we now move on to the TEQ Super Saiyan Trunks, his leader skill gives 2 ki as well as a 20% stat boost to tech and physical types. He causes supreme damage and he gives a 20% attack boost to all allies for 1 turn. He gets an 80% attack boost at the start of the turn, and when God is active, he reduces damage by 40%. So somewhat the opposite of the Goten. Obviously, he is guaranteed to get that 80% boost every single time, whereas the guarding is a bit different. It only activates when he has a type advantage. So I would imagine that when he's taking on an INT type, he's literally going to be taking next to no damage, right? But that's just going to be the case for every single INT type unit anyway. But he's going to be a tank on your tech team when you have a type advantage. But for the most part, it doesn't really provide anything else defensively, just because it only activates when you have a type advantage. But the good thing about this card in particular is that he does get that 80% attack boost. He has a great link set as well. He has Golden Warrior, Super Saiyan, Kamehameha, Biting Warrior, the Innocence, Prepared for Battle. Like, when it comes to links, the Mono Tech team is somewhat all over the place. Prepared for Battle is there, but it's more over in a flash, Prepared for Battle orientated, and to be fair, this guy's going to be in your last slot the majority of the time anyway, but he does share specific links like the Innocence with your Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and I believe he shares Budding Warrior with Adult Gotenks as well, so those are good attack links that those units in particular are going to have. So he is going to be giving an attack boost to those units, and obviously he gets an attack boost in return, and I believe both of these links are worth 10% each, so an additional 10% to Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and then an additional 10% to Super Saiyan 3 Adult Gotenks. His 12 ki multiplier is 130%. I don't believe his stats are as high as Goten's. I believe his attack stat is slightly higher, and he has a slightly higher defensive stats, but when it comes to health, Goten has around 700 more, which is somewhat significant. So Trunks is somewhat the opposite of Goten. When it comes to that 80% attack boost, he is going to get it at the start of the turn every single time that he is up. Whereas Goten has that high chance to get that 80% attack boost, but the thing about Goten is that he is going to be reducing damage by 40% unconditionally, but then you have Trunks, who does reduce damage by 40% when God is activated. So you can definitely see how they somewhat contrast, and if they were the same type, I definitely feel like it would be a bit of a harder decision to come to a conclusion as to which one is better, but it honestly depends on your box and what you personally want. Of course, if you want a unit that can somewhat tank on your mono in team and has a chance to get an 80% attack boost, you would go ahead and use Goten. To be honest, I'm definitely going to try him out if I manage to pull him. He has a decent link set for that team as well. Like, basically every single unit in your team has Prepared for Battle, and on the team that I'm using, pardon me, I have a ton of support units, so super attacking with my entire team shouldn't be a problem. And a 20% attack boost is nice, don't get me wrong, but because he's going to be in that last slot the majority of the time, again, it does depend on your team and your box, what you want to use, of course. But if you were to put Goten in that first slot, yes, he is going to give that 20% attack boost. But the majority of the time, he is definitely going to be in that third slot, which kind of makes it irrelevant. And again, the exact same can be said for Super Saiyan Trunks, but I'm going to say this for the last time. It just comes down to what you have in your box and what you want to use. You may not have an optimal team, so you obviously want to go ahead and put this guy in the first slot or in the second slot just to give, you know, your other units an attack boost, which is obviously nice. But when it comes down to which one is better, I honestly think it's subjective. It just comes down to what you have in your box and what you want to use, of course. But you can clearly tell that they both have their strengths and weaknesses, and they are somewhat the opposite of each other. They have the same abilities, but they just activate in different ways and they work in different ways. And I just found out that the particular banner that these guys are on actually include LR Majin Vegeta, LR Gohan, and LR Broly. So if you're feeling lucky and you have 30 stones to spare, go ahead and try to summon for these guys at least, or if you're lucky, you'll manage to pull LR Gohan or some of those guys. But keep in mind that this is not a guaranteed SSR summon. I thought that the Heroes banner was a guaranteed SSR summon, and it turns out that it's not. But again, it's just 30 stones, so if you want to go ahead and just dish them out so that you can obviously pull some of the newer characters, go ahead and do so, because they will definitely be decent additions to your team if you don't have too many good units. But I hope you guys did enjoy the video as always, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. If you aren't following me already on Twitter, I will leave the link down below as always. I reached 5,000 followers recently, so thanks to everyone that obviously followed me. Your support is always appreciated, but I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all in the next one.